Greetings, everyone. This is Chief Kalinago Flying Eagle. Hope everybody's doing well. Today is a beautiful day, and it's always a beautiful day to be alive. All right. Once again, I'm here to present some information. Information is for educational purposes only, and of course, do your own due diligence. All right. I want to acknowledge the great spirit, universal intelligence, the universal I am, universal mind, what some people may call God. All right. Definitely want to honor my ancestors, thanking them for guiding me and protecting me. And I know that any weapons formed against me will never prosper. All right. And just want to put that out there in the universe. Anyone who's trying to hurt me intentionally, I do not forgive. I'm definitely asking my ancestors to bring the wrath. All right. And bring that in abundance. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I am thankful. I'm grateful to be here. Once again, it's a beautiful time to be alive. A lot of people are going through a rough time right now, but I am sending a lot of love and positive energy to each and every one of you, anyone who hears my voice or get this message today. All right. Part of my goal, again, is to restore the legacy of my ancestors, tell the truth, that's been hidden, that wasn't told. Of course, a lot of the things that I'm teaching and showing people about, that's not being taught in school in the traditional sense of what we call education. So I'm going far and beyond. I'm talking about information and knowledge I've had in archives for 15 to 20 years. I'm pulling all that out and bringing that out to you. Okay. The website is www.ipnan.org. By all means, I created the website for you. Teach your children the truth. It is so important that our children know about our story, because you see, the thing is, right? His story is not our story, although our story can be found in some of his story. Our story is a mystery. That's why if you look at the word mystery, it kind of look like my story. It's pretty much the same word. All right. So our story is a mystery. All right. It is not his story. So with that being said, I'm going to talk to you guys today. Let me make sure I have audio. Greetings, everyone. That his story. All right. I'm going to talk about Uncle Tom. Okay. Because a lot of people have the wrong conception, or they have been told or taught that Uncle Tom was just, was the sellout. There's such a negative connotation when it comes to the term Uncle Tom. So I'm going to go over the story of Uncle Tom. I may not read the entire, article, but all that stuff is on our website. So read that in your own time. However, I will read as much as I can, or I feel like reading. Then we'll talk about Queen Annie of Jamaica. Then we'll talk about the first and only black so-called black queen of Hawaii. So again, just unraveling our greatness, and that's been buried and it's not being told. All right. So greetings to everyone. Hey, what's up, Chief Blackbird? What's going on? All right. So guys, do me a favor, go ahead and share the link on your respective platforms, and let's get into our greatness. All right, let's get into our greatness. I want to give a shout out to everyone around the world, man. I just love sharing information. I just love to teach. That's what I like to do. So let's get into Uncle Tom here for a second, if we may. All right, Uncle Tom. Let's get into Uncle Tom. Because when they call you an Uncle Tom, it's like such a bad thing. But let me tell you something. A lot of people don't deserve to be called Uncle Tom, because Uncle Tom, the characteristics of Uncle Tom is pretty much a whole lot contrary to what they are telling us, okay, or what's being taught, okay? So when they call people like, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and Don Lennon from, CNN, et cetera, when you call him Uncle Tom, that's literally being too good to them, all right? So let us get into really who Uncle Tom was. Let's get into that. All right, guys, let's get into that. And if you guys are having a beautiful sun day because the sun is out, okay, go do me a favor, please, and go ahead and type some 8s in the chat, because the number 8 is the continuation of life. You feel what I'm saying? And life is about, of course, it's the continuation of good things and great things and also evolving. I personally, I don't subscribe to death because I don't believe in death. To me, death doesn't exist. Why? Because I know I'm not the flesh. The flesh is just the avatar. Life is ongoing. Okay, so I only subscribe to life. That's why I have no fear. You feel me? Because I know nobody could actually kill me. Taking the flesh is not killing me because I am not the flesh. You see what I'm saying? So, with that being said, even with the flesh, when it goes back into the earth, guess what? The trees, the plants, it's our DNA is used to give trees life, okay, as well. So it's literally it's a continuation of life. I just want to point that out, okay? Just wanted to point that out because too many people, people want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die. I just don't get it, right? Everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody want to go to die. Nobody want to die. Isn't that crazy? But heaven is within. You know what I'm saying? I've already had 1,000 deaths. I've already been crucified, so I'm good. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen and get into Uncle Tom. And guys, once again, this is on our site, okay? www.ipnan.org. Created the site for you, created the site for us, and a lot of work, time, and effort has gone into it, okay? So let's get into that. Uncle Tom. Boom. I got a whole gallon of spring water. I just had me a huge salad. I'm telling you, my avatar is craving salad so bad. It's just so beautiful. Just so y'all know, I don't own a stove, okay? I don't own a stove. Once in a while, I'll probably go somewhere and get something that's cooked, but at least 5-6 days a week, I just eat pure salads, okay, and drink water. All right, so I don't own a stove. That's just my way of keeping myself disciplined. You see what I'm saying? That's my way of keeping myself disciplined. Discipline comes from within, and only you could help yourself become what you want to be, regardless of what's happening around you. Your own reality is within your own mind. Okay, so that's part of my growth, self-mastery. You know what I'm saying? Doing things outside of the norm. Okay, and it's beautiful. I feel great. All right, so here we are, Uncle Tom, and this is in what part of our website? I think that's under the about the Aborigines, but anyway, here we are. Okay, either way, it's on the website. Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe. And I'm going to read a little bit of that. I'll read as much as, my spirit allows me to, and then I'll go on to the next article, okay? But that information is on the website. Okay, Uncle Tom. So today, the phrase Uncle Tom evokes a powerfully negative image in American society. It depicts a weak, subservient, cringing black, and guys, whenever I see black in any of these presentations that I'm doing here today, I'm gonna say so-called black, because I always tell people whether I'm reading and I see what it is, I like to make my own adjustments because I want our people to get used to hearing, okay, or the notion of them knowing that they are not black. All right. You see, we have to change that. Nobody's going to change that for us. We have to change it. So I'm only playing my part. I'm planting the seed. All right. So I'm going to say so-called black. Okay. So let's read again. Uncle Tom. Today, the phrase Uncle Tom evokes a powerful negative image in American society. It depicts a weak, subservient, cringing, so-called black man who betrays his race and its struggle for liberation. David Reynolds, an English professor in the Graduate School of the City University of New York, CUNY, returns to the original Uncle Tom's Cabin to reveal that the character Harriet Beecher Stowe described in her 1852 novel is wholly opposite of the caricature we now imagine. His article explores how Stowe's Uncle Tom evolved into our contemporary image of Uncle Tom. The novelist Harriet Beecher Stowe, born 2,000 years ago, was an unlikely fomenter of wars, diminutive and dreamy-eyed. She was a harried housewife with 6 children who suffered various obscure illnesses, worsened by her persistent hypochondria. And yet, driven by a passionate hatred of slavery, she found time to write Uncle Tom's Cabin, which became the most influential novel in American history and a catalyst for radical change with both at home and abroad. Now, read that again, right? Uncle Tom's Cabin became the most influential novel in American history and a catalyst for radical change both at home and abroad. Today, of course, the book has this decidedly different reputation thanks to the popular image of its titular character, Uncle Tom, a name that has become a byword for a spineless, sellout, so-called black man who betrays his race. But this view is egregiously inaccurate. Uncle Tom was a physical, strong, and morally courageous, an inspiration for so-called blacks and other oppressed people worldwide. So let's read that again, because the whole conception, okay, or perceptions, rather, of the persona and characteristics of Uncle Tom that's being taught and being given or being promoted, it's a propaganda, okay, of falsity, of lies, okay, making Uncle Tom someone who betrayed their race, especially so-called black people. But that's couldn't even be further from the truth, because it's not true. So that's why it's important for me, at least, to give Uncle Tom his due diligence and respect for what he stood for and not what people made it to be. Okay, so I'm going to read that part again, all right, where it says, by this view is egregiously inaccurate. Uncle Tom, okay, let me just highlight that for y'all. Uncle Tom was physically strong and morally courageous. Those two characteristics in itself, okay, you have never heard that about Uncle Tom, okay? An inspiration for so-called blacks and other oppressed people worldwide, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. Uncle Tom was anything but an Uncle Tom, okay? Let's put the man's story in perspective, okay? Stowe described Tom as a large, broad-chested, powerful, made man with a self-respecting and dignified look that indicates grave and steady good sense. A man around 40 with a wife and 3 children. He is notable precisely because he does not betray fellow enslaved so-called blacks. Okay? Let's read that again, because what we've been hearing about Uncle Tom, it is so far from the truth. All right? A man around 40 with a wife and 3 children. He is notably precisely because he does not betray fellow so-called enslaved blacks. Okay? Keep that in mind. All right? Now, when we talk about the narrative of slavery, because our ancestors got enslaved, it doesn't mean they came here as slaves. Family, you have to know, and that's why I take my time to teach, and I go in depth and show you the timelines, okay? I show you the parallel comparison of what was happening in the Americas, opposed to or compared to what was happening across the seas at the same time. So you see how the stories fit. You see how it's coherent to prove and show that we did not come here on slave ships from Africa, but we were here. However, a lot of our people got enslaved in our own land. That's why one of the things that Martin Luther King said is this: the Negro became exiled in his own land. One could only be exiled in his or her land. You cannot be exiled in somebody else's land. But that's when he learned the truth, or he finally decided to speak the truth. You feel what I'm saying? So keep that in mind. So when they talk about slavery and all this and that, what they're not telling you is our people became prisoners of war in our own land by foreign occupiers, and that's still the case today. So I like to put that word slave and slavery again in its proper context, especially when it comes to dealing with so-called black people. Okay, our ancestors detest, I'm going to repeat that, our ancestors detest being called black, being called anything else than what the only thing, okay, on a huge consensus, all right, or status quo that they decided or agreed or consented to calling themselves was American Indian. That was the only thing they agreed to. They didn't, at some point, there was a war when we called ourselves colored, African American, Negro, I mean, just all the different names, black, especially black. Our ancestors didn't like that at all until James Brown. I'm not going to say that he was paid, but I'm going to give my own opinion. I'm entitled to that. I think he was paid, allegedly, I'm saying that, okay, to promote us being black. Just like how Jesse Jackson was put in the forefront in 1988 to call us African American. They always get, when I'm saying they, I'm talking about the system, always gets somebody, a prominent figure, okay, that people highly respect and adore to take us and put us back into the statuses that means that you are dead. Okay? So I like to talk about slavery and put slavery in its proper context. All right. Now let's continue here and read the rest of this paragraph. Now we are talking here about Uncle Tom. Let's get back to the story. He turns down an opportunity. Okay, so we are talking about Uncle Tom, right? He turns down an opportunity to escape from his Kentucky plantation because he doesn't want to put his fellow slaves in danger of being sold or punished. Now, to me, that's a man of great character. Okay, so when you call some of these people out here Uncle Toms, no, they don't deserve that. Okay, they don't deserve that. Stop disrespecting the real Uncle Tom. Okay. Later on, he endorsed a terrible whipping at the hands of a cruel slave master, Simon Legree, because he refuses to reveal where two enslaved women are hiding. We are told that Tom felt strong in God to meet death rather than betray the helpless. Now, that's the characteristic of an American Indian, an American Aborigine. Okay, now I got to pause here for a second, and I'm gonna go real quick. Okay, to a book, Manners and Customs of the North American Indian, to show you the characteristic of, okay, Uncle Tom and what they said in that book, the characteristic of the American Indian. Although that wasn't part of my plan, but like I said, I like to go far and beyond. So let me just pull that up real quick. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Hold on for 1 second, guys. Let me see if I have this on my drive. I think I should have it on my drive, but let me stop sharing my screen real quick. Okay. Let me stop sharing my screen real quick and go to my drive and see if I could find this for y'all. And I'm talking about, that's in a book, okay? It's a book on the manners and customs of the North American Indian. Or let me see if I could find that. Give me 1 second, please. And you know, a lot of times when I do these things, I just go with the flow, guys. So, you know, please, you know, don't think I'm not prepared. I was prepared to go through this, but I like to, you know, give more information to solidify my points when I'm talking and to prove to you that, you know, the people we are talking about, they're actually American Aborigines, and they were not slaves that came from Africa. So let me see, sketches. I think it's sketches. Let me go ahead and open that up. righty, I think we got it coming up right here. Let me scroll down here for a second. And let me see. Boom, boom, boom. I know I had highlighted some of that. Okay. Give me 1 second here, family. Let me just get this for you guys because I really want y'all to see this. Okay. And let's compare what they're saying to Uncle Tom's character. All right. Let me see. From the Europe and the active African attributes is the patient endurance. All right, the American Indian from who native soil with wealth of great position. They really smile. The North American Indian on the contrary. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now this book, as a matter of fact, I'm going to share this for you, and I'm going to read right now again about some of the characteristics that was mentioned with Uncle Tom. All right. Let me just come down here. All right, let me share my screen, and we're going to read that again. Go ahead and read that. Boom. Share that. And let's go here. Uncle Tom. Share. Okay. Let this screen populate real quick, and we're just going to read that little part about Uncle Tom again. Okay. Let's read that again. We are talking about Uncle Tom now. He turns down an opportunity to escape from his Kentucky plantation because he doesn't want to put his fellow slaves in danger of being sold or punished. Later on, he endures a terrible whipping at the hands of the cruel slave owner, Simon Legree, because he refuses to reveal where two enslaved women are hiding. We are told that Uncle Tom felt strong in God to meet death, all right, rather than betray the helpless. Legree regards Tom as a brash troublemaker who is despicable because he is unflinching. Had not this man braved him steadily, powerfully, resistlessly, all right, ever since he brought him. After the Civil War, a group of ex-slaves to whom the novel was read aloud declared that a few enslaved so-called blacks would have dared to resist their master as determinedly as Tom did. Now, what to me is very striking in the characteristic is that he would rather meet his death than betray or go ahead and expose the location of these two so-called black enslaved women. Now let us go to that book, like I was telling you guys about, and that book is also on the website. Let's go to that book real quick. Let me share my screen, and let's look at some of the characteristics of the American Aborigine, aka American Indian. Let's go into this real quick. Application, boom. All right, here we go. Okay. Let this thing populate real quick, and let's scroll up a little bit. Let's scroll up a little bit, and again, let me give you the title of the book. It's actually on the website, okay? Just so y'all know. Give me 1 second. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, here's the title of the book: Sketches of the History, Manners, and Customs of the North American Indians. All right. And that's by James Buchanan, Esquire. Okay. Let us scroll down. And it's quite amazing to me. That's why I tell people I read so much. I've read so many books on ancient American history that when people start talking to me, when they come with their sideways, like because a lot of times, educated people, they think they're intelligent. There's a difference between being school educated and having intelligence to see things with discernment. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not knocking anybody's education. I'm saying that all that to say is when I hear a lot of people talking and they come up to me and start talking the nonsense, I got enough stuff in my arsenal to shut all the BS down. That's just all I'm saying. Okay, so let's go into the book. And what I was going to say is this, right? It is quite amazing to me. Every time they compare the American Indian, the original, the Aborigine, anytime they compare us to any other ethnic group, they always compare us to African blacks. Why is that? Why is that? How come you never hear natives are being compared to so-called Africans? Why do you think so? You see what I'm saying? I'll tell you why. Because when they came into the Americas, the colonizers, they didn't see natives as the original people. They saw people of Negroid features. So they're always comparing the American Aborigine to their cousins from the African continent. But here's another book on ancient history about the manners and customs of the North American Indian. And here they are again, making a comparison to the American Indian and our African cousins. Let's read this again. Okay, let's read this again. And I'm going to read a little excerpt here for you guys. All right. And I got everything highlighted in yellow. From one end of Europe to the other human, to the one side of Europe, to the other, the human have been aroused to a sense of their injuries and are now, hold up, let me just make this a little big so you guys can see this. There we go. Boom. All right, here we go. Here we go. Okay, let's read this again. From one end of Europe to the other, the human have been aroused to a sense of their injuries and are now actively engaged in the prosecution of every measure calculated to alleviate their sufferings, while but few have been stimulated to similar exertions in behalf of the red American Indians, which is us, because of course, when they tell you about the color Indian red, they're making you think it's pale people, but no, it's not. I have shown many proof of that with the Crayola American Indian crayon that they used to have in the schools, and they took it out because children were asking too many questions. How is that Indian red look like me, but you telling me somebody else is the Indian? So let's stop playing the games, okay, when we're using that term red Indian, okay? Now, from whose native soil the wealth of the great portion of the civilized world has been derived. Let's read that again, because they're trying to make you think we never get credit, all right? Because they have to keep promoting us that we came from the bottom of the barrel. But let's read that again. While but a few have been stimulated to similar exertions in behalf of the red American Indians, from whose native soil, okay, the wealth of a great portion of the civilized world has been derived. Now, here's what they're saying about the African, our cousins. That's why I tell people, I am not here knocking our cousins from Africa. Okay, I respect them. I love them. They are our family. They are our cousins. However, America is our motherland. Okay, and they are always comparing us to Africans. Why? Because we are of Negroid feature. As a matter of fact, even in Europe, even in Asia, the original people are of Negroid features. All right. So let us read the comparison between the American Indian. Why would they compare them to Africans if they were natives? And why do you think when those so-called black slaves, indentured servants, came into the Americas and they were eventually being enslaved, why do you think they were able to hide among the Indians? And they couldn't tell the difference between an Indian and an enslaved black man, so-called black man or woman that came from across the seas. Why is that? It's like the same story. When baby Moses, okay, was able to go into Egypt and hide among the Egyptians. Obviously, they had the same complexion. So you see, when you are reading, you have to read with understanding, okay? On many stories that we read, they tell you that the enslaved, let's just say enslaved Africans, they were hiding around the American Indians and they couldn't tell the difference. Why is that? Obviously, if you see a so-called native today and you see somebody that's a Negroid, it's a huge comparison based on complexion. So why was the slaves, so-called slaves, why were they able to hide among the Indians? Why is that? Somebody explain that to me, please. Just like that man said in that video when I went over with the Cherokee Nation, he said, what? If my grandmother were to take a comb and perm her hair, she would look like one of the black people in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So what is that telling you about his grandmother? She is a sister, but they will never tell you that. Okay? So here's another comparison between the African and the American Aborigine. And that's not to put anybody down. I'm just letting you know, based on ancient history, what they're saying, okay? The African is submissive. His patient endurance of labor renders his servile and debased state important to us. He is therefore preserved. Okay? That's what they are saying about the African. Okay? The African is submissive. And I'm not saying all. Okay? I'm not making that general statement because this is not putting down our cousins. I'm just giving you a comparison. Okay? Now, the African is submissive. His patience, endurance of labor renders his servile and based state important to us. He is therefore preserved. Now, this is the comparison they're making now to the North American Indian. The North American Indian, on the contrary, prefers banishment. Okay? In other words, I don't care what you do. You could banish me from whatever, and even death, to slavery. But his lands are serviceable to us. That's what they are saying. The North American Indian, on the contrary, compared to his African cousins, prefers banishment and even death to slavery. In other words, we say, listen, you're going to have to kill us. You're not enslaving us. Family, that's why I told you the colonizers has never won a physical war against our ancestors. They got us on paper, okay? They beat us with the pen. That's why the saying, the pen is mightier than the sword, it became so popular because they couldn't use the sword to defeat us. However, they used the pen. Okay? Now, but he is serviceable to us. Therefore, his extinction, they're talking about us, seems to be desired. The one submits to the yoke. All right? The one submits to the yoke. We oppress and pity him. The other disdains to become. They're talking about the African now. Okay? They're saying that the African submits to the yoke. Okay? We oppress and pity him. The colonizers is saying we oppress and pity the Africans. The other disdains to become the servant of man. All right? And his whole race is devoted to gradual extermination for such must be the inevitable consequence of all those measures which have been and still are in operation today against him. Though their inflictions is marked by different shades of guilt, in a few years, perhaps in a few ages, perhaps a few years, these sons of Edom will be so far removed from the reach of or eye of any but those engaged in the work of destruction, that no trace will be left to the posterity, meaning that the children of the wrongs which have been perpetuated upon the aborigines of the great American continent. Now, what's that's really interesting is here, they called us the sons of Edom. People don't realize all Edom means is red. Okay? That's why they call us the Red Indians. I hope the wheels are turning in your heads. Okay? I hope the wheels are turning in your head. All right? Now, in that story of the Bible, right? With Esau and Jacob, right? Jacob was supposedly the black son, okay? And Esau was supposedly the white or the red son, right? Now, think about what I'm saying here. Let me ask you a question. Who stole whose birthright? Can anybody tell me? I'm waiting on you guys now. But in the meantime, let me just go show y'all the Crayola Red Indian crayon real quick, okay? While you guys are getting that, let me see. Let me just share this real quick. Give me 1 second. Let me go to Google real quick. And I'm going to go back to Uncle Tom. I just want you guys to show you the characteristics between Uncle Tom and the manners and customs of the American Indian. He would rather die. Okay? And that's exactly what they said in a book in ancient history. And here we are talking about Uncle Tom with the same characteristics, right? Okay. Let me just go to Google real quick. Indian Crayola Red. All right, let me get an image of that. Indian Crayola Red. Let me just go ahead and tap on that and let you guys see that real quick, right? Boom, here we go. We have chestnut and Indian Crayola Red. They are literally close in color, okay? Now, you guys may be asking, well, Chief, why is it so important to stress the color? It is important to stress the color because, all right, when you hear about the red Indian, a lot of people are thinking about these natives. These natives are not red; they are pale. Okay, let us go ahead and share this. All right, let me share this. Let me share this real quick. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that in a while, brother. Let me just share this real quick. Here we go. So this is actually what Indian red look like. It is basically the same color as chestnut. Okay? So they used to have those Crayola crayons. They were popular back in the days. Okay, and they used to have them in schools. Now, a young child looking at a crayon and seeing that it's Indian red on the crayon, and you're looking at your complexion, and that's kind of looking brown and hazel and chestnut like me and copper like me. Hold up. But when I look at the cowboy and Indians, I see that's not what they're saying the Indian is, but they're calling them the red Indian. You see what I'm saying? That's why they had to take them out of circulation in the schools. You dig what I'm saying? They took them out of circulation in the schools. Too many questions. It was confusing children. So just wanted to kind of show y'all that. Okay? Just to show you that. Now let's go back. Now I asked the question. Well, I got to get back to Uncle Tom first. And then before I do, I'm going to address what I was talking about earlier. Okay, about Jacob and Esau. Okay. Esau stole, they say Esau stole Jacob's birthright, right? But they call the American Aborigines Esau. So what are they telling you? They're saying that we stole their birthright. That's why King James came and did what? King James came and told his Israelite children that this land is their promised land, okay? Which they are also related or supposedly are of Jacob. You see what I'm saying? Because King James was the first Jacobus. He was a Jacobite, all right? And then he changed his name. Just so y'all know, he changed his name to Israel. You see what I'm saying? So now he's telling his people, now listen, this land was promised to you, your birthright was stolen. Okay, so he came here to with the intentions to enslave the American Aborigines, the Red Indians, okay, enslave them, not just physically, but through their gods, so that he could promise his people the land that was supposed to be your birthright. I hope y'all see where I'm going with this. Okay. But anyway, that's something I'll probably have to get into another time in detail. But I'm just kind of opening up your mind to let you know that the Bible is not about a sky daddy. It's not about anybody coming to save you in the sky. It ain't got nothing to do with that. All right. Just keep that in mind. Okay. That is King James genealogy and his Big Mama's Bible talking about his journey and his tribes coming into the Americas. All right. So just want y'all to know that. Let's go back to Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom. Okay, so now that we went into the manners and customs, and I'm talking about an ancient history of the American Indian, the characteristics, we are talking about Uncle Tom right here, okay? Let's read some more. Moreover, in a day when so-called blacks were widely regarded by whites as subhuman, lustful, or comically irresponsible, Uncle Tom's Cabin demonstrated that they were capable of full range of feeling, loyalty, friendship, sorrow, pity, and religious devotion. On every page, Stowe made a crystal clear point: so-called blacks were human, and to enslave them was evil. Okay? That's why in the mid-19th century, Southerners savagely attacked Uncle Tom's Cabin as a dangerously radical book. A Southern political cartoon depicted Stowe in hell, surrounded by the demons and holding a book titled Uncle Tom's Cabin. I love the so-called blacks. Previously, Southerners had thought it unnecessary to write lengthy defenses of slavery, which was seen as a natural part of the American system. But Uncle Tom's Cabin made it a point so powerfully and with such popular success, it sold over 300,000 copies in America and around 1.5 million, all right, abroad in a year, that it provoked numerous attacks in Southern poems, reviews, articles, and books. 30 novels were written in reply to Uncle Tom's Cabin. In these so-called anti-Tom novels, slavery was presented as a wonderful institution sanctioned by the Bible, okay, and by the laws of the land that provided ignorant African savages with shelter, food, and religious instruction. Now, let's pause here. They were absolutely correct. Okay, slavery was sanctioned by the Bible. But what people are making the mistake is they are thinking is the Great Spirit, okay, or the universal intelligence, or the great I am that sanctions slavery. No, the gods and lords in the Bible are nothing but kings in Europe. Okay, they make themselves lords and gods, and they sanctioned slavery. And that's why slavery was okay in the Bible. You see what I'm saying? Pastors and ministers will not tell you that because they want you to think it's from a sky daddy sitting in the sky, looking down, judging you, playing competition with the devil. Let's see who's going to get more souls. Well, if that one does that, you could have him. If this one does this, then I could have her. No, that doesn't exist. Okay? The only people that's judging you is yourself and your actions, your intent. That's why it's called karma. You create your own karma. Karma is judgment. Nobody is judging you. Okay? Only God could judge you. Who is God? You. Only you could judge yourself based on your actions. You see what I'm saying? So the Bible condones slavery, not because the Great Spirit or the universal all or the great I am or what people or the true essence of what God should be. Okay, that entity did not, I will repeat, that entity did not sanction or condone slavery. However, okay, the nobility who wrote the Bible, they are the ones that call themselves God in and Lord in the Bible. I just wanted to make that clear. Okay. Meanwhile, Stowe's novel greatly strengthened anti-slavery sentiments in the North. For the first time, Northerners felt the horrors of slavery on their nerve endings. many anti-slavery reformers jumped on the Uncle Tom juggernaut. Previously, the anti-slavery movement had been divided between small, conflicting groups that were widely unpopular. The Uncle Tom's Cabin was a force for unity and cohesion among these fragmented groups. Stowe was overjoyed by the embrace of the novel by different anti-slavery factions, she said. The fact that the wildest and extremist abolitionists have united with the coldest conservatives to welcome and advance my book is a thing that I have never ceased to wonder at. All right. The impact of Stowe's novel was amplified by a powerful cultural phenomenon known as tumitudes, representations of the novel in all popular mediums, puzzles, card games, dolls, Chinaware, and so on. The most influential tie-ins were the plays based on the novel, the first of which appeared in 1852, just a few months after the publication of the novel. For many people saw the play Uncle Tom's Cabin that read the novel. Pathos thrills, music impressive, backdrops, all the crowd-pleasing elements were there in play, which appeared throughout the North and everywhere, made converts to the anti-slavery. The most surprising converts were Northern workers, class types who had previously been known for their violence against abolitionists or so-called blacks. It was unprecedented to see white working class people cheering for fugitive slaves, hissing at a cruel slave owner and weeping over the death of an enslaved so-called black man. Now, I'm going to stop here, okay? I'm going to stop here, and you guys could read the rest of Uncle Tom's Cabin, okay? I just wanted to give you a synopsis of who Uncle Tom was. Uncle Tom was a great man. Okay, you know what? Let's finish reading it because I don't think we have a lot left. So let me just continue. I mean, I'm definitely in the mood right now, okay? The novel had a key role in the political reshuffling that lay behind the rise of anti-slavery Republican Party. As the novel's stature grew, it gave strong impetus to the anti-slavery politics. In 1856, one journalist wrote, and just so you know, so-called black people created the Republican Party, okay? Just so y'all know, all right? Because that was an extension of the 13 colonies that was created by the so-called black nobles that came here into the Americas, all right? And then eventually, with more of the pale people being a democratic society, all right, they started convincing our people to fight into their civil rights. Because remember, the original civil rights wasn't about so-called black people, just so y'all know. All right, we took it upon ourselves because we were the last one, okay, to be considered civilians and then given rights to vote. Okay, family, we got to put all this in perspective. And I've given you proof of so many of those things that I'm teaching. All right, now, much anti-slavery truth heretofore discarded by people as fanatical is now received and read by all. Uncle Tom's Cabin, thundering along the pathway of reform, is doing a magnificent work on the public mind. Wherever it goes, prejudice is disarmed, opposition is removed, and the hearts of all are touched with a new and strange feeling to which they before were strangers. Stowe's novel was often mentioned in political speeches, like one of the House floor by Ohio Congressman Joshua Giddens, who declared, "A lady with her pen has done more for the cause of freedom during the last year than any servant, statesman, or politician of our land." Like I told y'all before, the pen is mightier than the sword, okay? Keep that in mind. They enslaved us and beat us with the pen. Why do you think I created this organization? So that we could use the pen to get back and put ourselves in position. You see, there's always a madness behind everything I do. I don't just do things because I'm bored. Okay? I'm being moved to do this. All right? But this is just the beginning. Just watch Chief Kalinago work. All right? Watch me move. Now, let's continue. All right? The inimitable work, Uncle Tom's Cabin, is now carrying truth to the minds of millions who up in this time have been death cries of the downtrodden. Thus, the novel crystallized the debate over slavery and intensified the tensions that led to the Civil War. By the eve of the war, as one, now keep that in mind again. Remember, we had indentured slavery, indentured servitude before slavery was reestablished. All right, in the 1100s, slavery was abolished in Europe. There was no slavery in the Americas. Okay, the enslavement of pale people was abolished, and certain so-called black people was abolished in the 1100s. So when all these people were coming here, when they first came in 1492, like I said, they did not come to bring servants. They came to fight wars. Okay. Now, when indentured servantry was instituted in the 1600s, particularly 1609 or 1619, okay, then the people who were coming here, they were not slaves. They came here on contracts. Their kings in Africa, their kings in Europe, their kings in Asia knew exactly where they were going. Okay, because they already got paid. They already got paid. However, in the 1800s, King George II, okay, said, listen, nah, man, slavery is a business. So we have to bring that back. It got to boom. And that's when slavery was officially, okay, started in the Americas. Don't let anybody fool you with the war. Slaves come in the 1600s and the 1700s. That's not true. Indentured servants came here. Okay? These people came here on contracts. They knew where they was going. All right? Now, let's go back to the reading here for a second. I had to kind of digress and make sure I explain that here. Okay? Let me see. And now, in 1882, the ex-slave Frederick Douglass affirmed that no one had done more for the progress of African Americans than Stowe. Right? Let me see where we are at. I'm reading right here from here now, okay? And we're going to continue down, okay? As the so-called black intellectual W.E.B. Du Bois later wrote, thus to a frail, overburdened Yankee woman with a steadfast moral purpose, we Americans, so-called black and white, owe gratitude for the freedom and union that exists today in the United States of America. The book stoked fires overseas too as well. In Russia, it influenced the 1861 emancipation of the serfs and later inspired Bolshevik leader Nikolai Lenin, who recalled it as his favorite book in his childhood. It was the first American novel to be translated and published in China, and it fueled anti-slavery causes in Cuba and Brazil. Okay, why do you think Uncle Tom made such an impact? Why? Because the indigenous people of all the lands, they were so-called black. All right, even of Germany, and even of Russia, and even of China, and even of Asia, which is part of China. I mean, Asia, which is China, is considered to be part of Asia. Okay. Now, the heart of the book's progressive appeal was sturdy. Proud Uncle Tom himself. Unfortunately, Tom was grossly misrepresented in post-Civil War stage versions of Uncle Tom's Cabin that catered to the taste of the Jim Crow era. By the 1890s, there were hundreds of acting troops, so-called Tomers, that fanned out across North America, putting on Uncle Tom's Cabin in every town, hamlet, and city. Some troopists even toured internationally. I mean, even toured, pardon me, I said toured toured internationally, performing as far as Australia and India. The play remained popular up to the 1950s and still appears occasionally, as in Alex Rowe's staging in fall 2010 at the Metropolitan Playhouse in New York City, East Village. In many of the plays, Stowe's revolutionary themes were drowned in sentimentality and spectacle. Uncle Tom was often presented as a stooped, obedient old fool, the model image of a submissive so-called black man preferred by a post-reconstructive, pre-civil rights America. It was this Uncle Tom, weakened both physically and spiritually, who became a synonym for the racial sellout by the mid-20th century. So-called black musicians, sport figures, even establishment civil rights leaders were all tarred with the Uncle Tom label, often by younger, more radical activists as a way to demean or demeaning them in the eyes of the so-called African American community. Alrighty, we almost done with that. But it doesn't have to be that way. Uncle Tom should once again be a positive symbol for so-called African American progress. After all, many people who over the years were derived or derided as Uncle Toms, Jackie Robinson, Louis Armstrong, the Willie Mays, to name a few, are now seen as brave racial pioneers. Indeed, during the civil rights era, it was those who most closely resembled Uncle Tom, Stowe's Tom, not the sheepish one of the popular myth, who proved the most effective in promoting progress. Rosa Parks didn't mind the Uncle Tom label, since she believed that great change could result from nonviolent moral protest. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, though often called an Uncle Tom, also stuck to the principles of nonviolence. A quiet woman who refused to give up her bus seat in Montgomery, a pacifist minister who told America about his dream of a more egalitarian nation. Their form of protest was just as active as Tom's and just as strong. Both Stowe and Tom deserves our reconsideration and our respect, and I concur. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, this is Uncle Tom story. Okay, don't let anybody fool you and tell you otherwise. All right, we had to give Uncle Tom his due credit. All right, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna read a little bit about Charlie Payton, 1891 to 1984. And then we'll go read a little bit about Queen Nanny. And after that, we'll talk about Adolf Baden. And let me see if we have time. Yeah, I'll go over that as well. So let's just, right now, this is what I'm going to do first. Give me 1 second here. Let me go here real quick. I think I'm going to see if I could do the Queen of Hawaii. I think I might do that next. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can find that. And that's on the American Aborigines, the Queen of Hawaii. All right. Here we are. Okay. Boom. Let's go and do that one first. The Queen of Hawaii before I get into anything else. Okay. Before I get into anything else, let's get into the Queen of Hawaii. So when these people are telling us all these things about who we are and who we aren't, you guys got to know enough to put people in their places, all right, and let them respect our ancestors and stop being disrespectful, okay? Okay, here we are. Meet the first and only so-called Black Queen of Hawaii, who was overthrown by the U.S. in the 1800s. Okay, that's her right there. That's a sister right there. You feel me? Sitting on her throne. You did? All right. But yet still, the Queen of Hawaii was a so-called black woman, but we all came from slave ships from Africa, right? I'm telling you, man, listen, I don't know what's up with people, man. But anyway, let us read some more. Reading is fun for the mental, right? Historical accounts and images of the indigenous Hawaiian people. Although the evidence is minimal, according to Kalamoya Solomon, okay, he's saying that a lot of those people, but hear what it says, right? Although the evidence is minimal, okay, they're suggesting that they came from, like all dark-skinned people came from Africa. But again, the evidence is minimal because they cannot prove that. It's not true, okay? So that's why it says Africans arrived in Hawaii as a result of extensive exploration long before the European began their global expeditions. What they're not telling you is we were already here, okay? We were already here, all right? The first Hawaiians and their royal counterparts were dark-skinned with very distinct, again, they're saying African facial features. I'm going to say American Aboriginal features because they were not Africans. All right. And once again, please, guys, nothing against our cousins in Africa. We just have to put our story in perspective. Okay. We have always been here in the Americas. Negro de Terra and Negro de Guinea. Keep in mind, Negro de Guinea, Africans. Negro de Terra, American Aborigines. Two distinct people. All right. Now, Queen Liliʻuokalani was known as the last so-called black royal of Hawaii and was the first and last female to rule between 1891 and 1893. Okay. Queen Liliʻuokalani-QUEEN Walner Kamaka Iha was born on September 2nd, 1838. Her father was the High Chief Kamanawa II, who was the great-grandson of one of the Kuna chiefs in Hawaii. Now, if she was born in 1838, right, and her father was a High Chief II, that means that his father was a High Chief I. You see what I'm saying? So let us go back. We're going back here, family, into the early 1700s, possibly the late 1600s. We're talking about the royalty in Hawaii was so-called black people. So again, explain to me, how did we come in the bottom of slave ships? I mean, show me where the ship's at. That's why I tell people, when y'all read, man, read with understanding, okay? Don't just read with a closed mind. Open up your mind and ask questions. Think for yourself. You feel me? Okay? Now, currently, there is a tribe in Nigeria called the Zhukon Kuna tribe. There could be some connection, as the Zhukon Kuna tribe members are known for migrating to other parts of the world, but there is no historical evidence of this. Again, once again, here we are. Okay, let's read this again. And please, I have to keep making my disclaimer. This is nothing against our African cousins, but I really detest the fact that everything about us, they want to give it Africa credit for. You see what I'm saying? Now, hear what they're saying. Currently, there is a tribe in Nigeria called the Zhukon Kuna tribe. There could be some connection as Zhukon Kuna tribe members are known by migrating to other parts of the world. But what it says, but there is no historical evidence of that. So if there's no historical evidence, why are you saying it could be? Why it can't just be two coincidences that two of those different ethnic groups, they have similar cultures? Because why? It all came from the Americas in the first place. Now, some people may say, well, Chief, you are being biased. Yes, it's the biased truth. It's the biased truth, because I've shown you guys not just historical evidence, but I've also shown you scientific evidence, geological evidence. Okay? With the greatest scientists and genealogists in the world and historians telling you that America was the firstborn. The funny thing is, a lot of people know this, but they will not teach it, okay? Because they want us to think, nah, you came here in the bottom of slave ships, and that's all we're going to tell you. That's all you need to know, and you were packed like sardines. Okay, that was your start. All right. After the death of her younger brother in 1877, Liliʻuokalani became the heir to the throne. She was crowned princess and attended a royal training school. Lily, let's call her Lily for now, okay? Lily developed a keen love for classical literature and music. She eventually became a professional composer and writer. She eventually married an American statesman named John Owen Dominus. Princess Liliʻuokalani was crowned queen in 1891 after her elder brother King Kalinago passed away. Okay, and if you go look at the statue, go look at Hawaii 5-0, and they always show in breaks. Okay, her brother. All right, I'm not sure if it was the first or the second, which was one of them was her grandfather and her father, or Kalinago. Go look at the statue. Definitely a brother. Okay, definitely without a doubt. You feel me? Now, Queen Liliʻuokalani made a significant impact during her short reign as queen. She modified laws and introduced new legislation that favored women. She launched saving accounts, schemes for women, opened orphanages, and established the Liliʻuokalani Educational Society to provide educational training for so-called black girls from the low-income backgrounds because she was looking out for her peoples. Okay? She also created a financial aid scheme for young so-called black women who wanted to enroll in training courses. Queen Liliʻuokalani worked tirelessly to regain majority power for the monarchy of Hawaii after they lost power to the U.S. government through the Bayonet Constitution. Again, it's always a constitution. Like I told y'all, family, when I'm talking, I know what I'm talking about. That's why the pen is mightier than the sword. Look what happened with the 5 civilized tribes. Okay, they defeated us on paper. The Dawes Rose, the census, they defeated us on paper. Okay, that's how they won, through constitutions and declarations and resolutions. Okay. Liliʻuokalani was overthrown by the American, let's just say by the United States and European business owners alongside the U.S. Minister John Stevens and the U.S. Marines on January 17th, 1893. Queen Liliʻuokalani penned a letter that read, "I, Liliʻuokalani, by the grace of God and under the Constitution of Hawaiian Kingdom, Queen, do hereby solemnly protest against any and all acts done against myself and the constitutional government of Hawaiian Kingdom by certain persons claiming to have established provisional government of and for this kingdom." All right. Now to avoid any collision of armed forces and perhaps the loss of life, I do under this protest and impelled by said force yield my authority until such time as the government of the United States shall, upon the facts being presented to it under the action of its representative, and reinstate me in the authority which I claim as the constitutional sovereign of the Hawaiian Islands. So she did that on the do-rats. Okay. In 1895, the Queen was arrested for encouraging protests. That's what they do. It's not the same thing the system is doing right now. Anytime you stand up for American Aborigines, they call you anti-government. They call you enemy of the state, all that stuff, because you want to stand up for your people. This is our land. You are occupying our land. You're foreigners on our land. That's why I tell people we have to get up and rise collectively. One man cannot be the hero. One woman cannot be the shero. You have seen what have happened in the past. We all got to be on one accord, one mindset. Okay? She was placed under house arrest where she surrendered and gave up her crown in exchange for the release of innocent civilians that had been placed under arrest. So we give you a deal. We're going to kidnap your people, all right, and we're going to give you an ultimatum. It's either, you give up your crown and we let them go, or else. You feel me? All right. Liliʻuokalani attempted to reestablish the monarchy of Hawaii, but all attempts failed. She lived under strict surveillance for the rest of her life until a stroke ended her life in 1917. Queen Liliʻuokalani made a powerful impact during her reign as queen, providing many opportunities for underprivileged women in Hawaii. She also remembered for her talent as a musician and writer. She penned her autobiography, The Story of Hawaii, while under the house arrest after being overthrown by the U.S. government. All right. Now, we did that. Let us go look at Charlie Payton, 1891 to 1934, and then we'll go to Queen Nanny. All right. Charlie Payton, born in Hinds County, Mississippi, near the town of Edwards, is by consensus the father of Delta blues and one of the most important American musicians of the 20th century. Now, like I told y'all before, where do you think the blues came from? Where do you think R&B came from? Where do you think hip hop came from? Where do you think rap came from? Rap came from Kool Herc, from Jamaican parents who brought it into the Bronx. This is all the Americas. You see what I'm saying? Who created rock and roll? So you tell me, how could anybody else claim to be the original people of this land when you haven't contributed to anything original? You see what I'm saying? We created, boom, they take the credit for it. It's really that simple. So learn about Charlie Payton, okay? Born in Hinds County, Mississippi, near the town of Edwards, is by consensus, okay, meaning that by the majority, okay, the father of Delta blues and one of the most important American musicians of the 20th century. Legendary bluesman, son of house, Howlin' Wolf, Robert Johnson, Marty Waters, John Lee Hooker, and Elmore James all trace their blues style back to Payton. In addition to being a bluesman of the highest order, Payton might have also been the first rock and roll roller. Okay? The first rock and roller. You feel me? Let me see. He played the guitar loud and rough, often playing behind his knees and back and lipping about like a man possessed. That's because he had the ancestors. You see what I'm saying? That's because he had the ancestor spirits in him. All right. One can begin with Payton's proto-rock roots and see them extend to Howlin' Wolf, then into Little Richard, James Brown, and ultimately Jimi Hendrix. Although generally considered to be so-called African American, Payton's ancestry was a mixture of so-called white, black, and Cherokee. Now you hear that? So-called white, black, and Cherokee. Now, yes, there may have been a little bit of mixing of the pale man in there. You feel me? But what they're not telling you is the so-called black and the Cherokee people are literally, that's what it was. The Anianwea, the original people of the land. So that's how they trick you to make you think the so-called black people are separated from so-called American Indians. You have to be mindful when you're reading. You got to know your story, okay? Being able to connect the dots, all right? One of his grandmothers was what? Full-blooded Cherokee. You see what I'm saying? So if one of your grandmothers was full-blooded Cherokee, how come all of a sudden you're black or African American, right? Go listen again to that conversation that I had with the Cherokee Nation What did he say about his grandmother? If she permed her hair, she would look like a black woman from Tulsa, Oklahoma. You see, they will not tell you that. Okay? Payton described that mixed heritage in Down the Road Blues, singing of having gone down the nation and the territory, which was the Cherokee Nation of Indian Territory, now eastern half of Oklahoma, where a number of so-called black Indians tried to obtain entry to the Indian rolls and thus claim land, and legal battle which continues to this day. Okay, why? Because that's how they got rid of us on paper, family. Okay, paper genocide. They created the rolls and say, nah, we're gonna make you exiled in your own land. You got to fight to get back on them rolls, because the pen is mightier than the sword. Why? Because we couldn't kill you with the sword. Obviously, you was beating us. I tell you, man. All right. When he was a child, Payton's family moved from Mississippi Hill country to the Delta to work on the Dockery plantation. It was here that both John Lee Hooker and Howlin' Wolf came under the influence of Payton. Here he also came into contact with Henry Sloan, one of the earliest Delta bluesmen. So, like I said, when they kept talking about and keep telling us about our ancestors were slaves, yes, let us not dispute that. A lot of them became enslaved, but it's not because they came here on slave ships, okay? It's because they were already here and they became prisoners of war in their own land, okay? POWs. That's why I think to this day, when you have a powwow, even if I don't really like that word, powwow, POW, prisoners of war, it's like, to me, you're celebrating what happened to my ancestors. But again, you know me, I just always like thinking wild. You know what I mean? I think outside the box. My mind is always extended. So I look at deeper meanings at things. It may not necessarily be that's what it means, but that's what I'm getting from it. Because that term powwow came from natives. And POW, POW, okay, prisoners of war. And that, to me, wow just means that you're celebrating it. But what do I know? I don't know. Maybe I'm paranoid, right? I don't know. But let's read a little more. Payton Hubbard around the Delta playing parties, one-room juke joints, and levee camps, often with guitarist and friend Willie Brown. Payton finally got to a chance to record 1929 after he auditioned for Henry Spear, a so-called white musician store owner. Spear contacted Paramount Records and set up a recording session in Richmond, Indiana. On this session, Payton recorded 14 sides, one of which, Pony Blues, became his first released recording and ultimately his trademark tune. Payton's second session took place at the Paramount studio in Grafton, Wisconsin. Delta fiddler Henry's son Sims. In 1930, Paramount issued 13 Payton records, and Payton became a certified country blues star. Often performing with Son House, Payton took House, Willie Brown, and pianist Louis Johnson with him to the Grafton for his third recording session. In 1934, despite failing health, Payton traveled to New York City to record for the American Record Company. One of the songs he cut, "Oh Death," was tragically prohibited. Just as a few months later, Payton died of a heart condition. He was 43 years of age. Charlie Payton was introduced into the Blues Foundation of Hall of Fame in 1980. Now, let's read that little part here again, right? One of his songs he cut, "Oh Death," okay? It was tragically prohibited. Just a few months later, it's quite interesting to me, right? When one of your songs is prohibited because there might be a message, maybe you are becoming too conscious, all of a sudden, 2 months later, he meets a sudden death. Now, doesn't that sound like a lot of our people right now, today, in this day and age, whenever they get conscious and they start speaking the truth, what happens? they meet a sudden death, right? Family, there is nothing new under the sun. You feel me? And that's the sad part about it. We have so many sheepy and so many people asleep. When people such as myself and others get up, okay, to do what we do, we don't have the support like that on a grand scale. So now we could be picked apart individually and made martyrs. You see what I'm saying? That's why I tell people it has to be a collective. Okay, it can't be just one set of people doing that or a small handful. No. You feel me? But it is just quite ironic that as soon as he had one of his songs tragically prohibited, it's called "Oh Death." I got to look up that song now. In fact, let me make a note and find "Oh Death." You know, because I got to definitely look for that. Give me 1 second, Charlie. Let me make a note of that. Charlie Payton song "Oh Death." I'm going to look that up to listen to the lyrics of that song. I might find some jewels in there. Okay. All right, guys. So that was Charlie Payton, right? We are going to go to Queen Annie. Because like I said, you got to read between the lines. Okay. Queen Annie. Not Queen Annie, pardon me. Queen Nanny. Queen Nanny of the Maroons. All right. Unknown date, but she met her demise, or she transitioned in 1733. All right. In 1733. So if we are looking at that right there, let's just say she lived to be at, let's just say 50. I mean, she was older than that, right? If she lived to about 50, we are talking about the late 1600s. You see what I'm saying? So you have to be able to put things in perspective and start thinking for yourself. All right. Was this woman actually a slave? Okay, that came from a slave ship, or was she enslaved in her indigenous land? You feel me? Read with understanding, my brothers and sisters, people of the world. All right, let us read here for a second. We're going to read Queen Nanny of the Maroons. All right, Queen Nanny as pictured on a Jamaican banknote. All right, and that's a sample of the note, of course. Now, Nanny, known as Granny Nanny. Granny Nanny and Queen Nanny was a Maroon leader and Obeah woman in Jamaica during the late 17th and early 18th century. Now, if you don't know what an Obeah woman is, it's kind of like somebody who practices voodoo or voodoo. But I know Jamaicans don't like calling Obeah. Like in the islands, we say Obeah, okay? We never used to say voodoo or voodoo. All right. Later that came. So we always say Obeah. All right. But Obeah is kind of like the same, a synonym for voodoo, just so y'all know. All right. So she was an Obeah woman in Jamaica during the late 1700s and early 18th century. Maroons were slaves in Americas who escaped and formed independent settlements. And that's absolutely true. They were escaped slaves. Now, this is where I have to come in and lay the record straight. Okay, they were not slaves who came from another continent and came into the Americas, even if that's what's being told. That's a lie, because she was an Arawak / a Taino, which were the Jamaicans. All right, they did not come into the island on any slave ships. All right, now. All right, that's good. I appreciate that, Lucia. Thank you. Or Lucia. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Okay. Now, Maroons were slaves in the Americas who escaped and formed independent settlements. So once again, showing that Jamaica is in the Americas, right? Nanny herself was an escaped slave who had been shipped from West Africa. Now, you see, there we go with the BS again. You see what I'm saying? I guarantee you 10 to 1, she was taken from another part of the Americas, taken to Jamaica, and just say, oh, well, she was from West Africa, because that's where we all came from, right? Okay, yeah, okay, right. Now, it has been widely accepted that she came from the Ashanti tribe of present-day Ghana, right? It said that it has been widely accepted You know, we're just gonna say, well, they're all Africans. So yeah, it's widely accepted. Okay, family. And when people read these things, they never question anything. They don't know the true story, and they just believe that. But that woman was an indigenous Taino woman. Okay. Nanny and her four brothers, all of whom became Maroon leaders, were sold into slavery and later escaped from their plantations into the mountains and jungles that still make up a large proportion of Jamaica. Nanny and one brother, Kuo, founded a village in the Blue Mountains, which they are still there today, okay, on the eastern or windward side of Jamaica, which became known as Nanny Town. Nanny has been described as a practitioner of Obia, a term used in the Caribbean to describe folk magic and religion based on, again, here we go, West African influences. But what they're not telling you is South America gave West Africa civilizations and most of what they know. And that's what I'm saying. That's what bothers me, is the fact that everything that we do or everything about us is being taken and given to another ethnic group. You feel me? That's the problem that I have. Nanny Town, placed as it was in the mountains away from European settlements and difficult to assault, thrived. Nanny limited her attacks on plantations and European settlements and preferred instead to farm and trade peacefully with her neighbors. That's how we do this again. We got to go back to a form of battering. Okay, we got to grow foods. All right, family, we got to get back, man. All right, we got to get back. Let me see where we at. She did, however, make numerous successful raids to free slaves held on plantations, and it has been widely accepted that her efforts contributed to the escape of almost 1,000 slaves over her lifetime. Okay, whether it's true or not, it was widely accepted. Okay, general consensus. Okay, while Nanny lived, Nanny Town and Windward Maroons thrived and multiplied. The British colonial administration became embarrassed and threatened by the successes of the Maroons. Plantation owners were losing slaves and having equipment and crops burnt by the Maroons. Raids demanded that the colonial authorities act. Let me see where we at. Hunting parties made up by British regular soldiers, militiamen, and mercenaries, many from the free black community. Again, who were the free black community? Okay, you see, that's what they're not telling you, man. That's what they're not telling you. Okay, the freedmen, the free black. Oh well, they're they're the freed people from slaves that came on. No, that was in the height of slavery. So how are you going to tell me in the height of slavery there were millions of so-called free black slaves running around? You see, it just don't add up. But they will not tell you that they were the indigenous people, the original indigenous people. Let's read that part again. That's why I say when you read, you got to read between the lines. Hunting parties made up of British regular army soldiers, militiamen, and mercenaries, many from the free black community, scoured the Jamaican jungles. Captain William Coffey, known as Captain Sambo, is credited as having killed Nanny in 1733 during one of the many and bloody engagements of war. I promise you, that was a brother. He's a Sambo. Now, that's the difference between an Uncle Tom and a Sambo. Okay, a Sambo is a sellout. Okay? 1733, during one of the many and bloody engagements of war. The war itself lasted from 1720 until a truce was declared in 1739. Like I told y'all before, why there had to be truce? Because they could never win a physical war against us. There always had to be a truce where we could sign some type of agreement or some type of treaty, and later that treaty wasn't acknowledged. All right? Exactly. That's who the freedmen were. Okay? Cujo, one of Nanny's brothers and a leader during the Maroon War, was the driving force behind the treaty. After Nanny's death, many of the Windward Maroons moved across the island to more sparsely inhabited western or leeward side of Jamaica. Nanny Town was eventually captured by the British and destroyed in 1734. Now, it's one thing to capture, but why you got to destroy the evidence of the people that was there? Because you have to hide the story to let them think that they were all slaves that came here on a slave ship. Okay? Nanny's life and accomplishments have been recognized by the government of Jamaica, and she has been honored as a national hero and awarded the title of Right Excellent. Excellent. Currently, there are only 7 such national heroes, and Nanny is the conspicuous as the only woman. All right, a modern portrait of Nanny based on her description appears on the Jamaican $500 note, the largest banknote in circulation in Jamaica. All right. Now, we're going to talk about Adolf Baden, 1747 to 1822. Okay. As you could see, he got his feather crown. All right. Let's do a little more reading, family. All right. Let's do a little more reading. And he's playing chess. So I told y'all got to learn how to play chess and stop playing checkers. Don't let me turn into DMX. All right. No. Adolf Ludwig Gustav Frederick Albert Baden, or Baden. Okay. I got Chief Kalinago about to come out like DMX. You know what I mean? I'm drinking some water now. Give me a second. Let me take a sip of water. I get hyped when I tell a story, man. I don't like the injustices that's being done to us, okay? I don't like that. All right. Now, Adolf Baden, or Baden, also known as Adolf Ludwig Gustav Frederick Albert Cauchy, okay, was born in St. Croix, Danish West Indies. Okay, he was born there in 1747 and died in 1822 in Sweden. Once again, he was an indigenous man. All right. Baden came to Sweden as a slave, but became, like I told y'all before, right? What they were doing? They were taking American Aborigines, okay, taking American Aborigines from all over the Americas and taking them into Europe as indentured servants, okay, as indentured servants. It wasn't until, well, around that time, it wasn't until the mid 1800s, okay, that slavery was in full bloom. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Now, Baden came to Sweden a slave, but became a titled person in the courts of King Frederick and Queen Ulrike during her reign in 1751 and 1779. Now, look at the crown on his head. So just so you know, in the Americas, he probably wasn't an average Aborigine, because everybody just wasn't wearing feathers like that, especially crowns. They had to be some type of chieftain, some type of leader. So that's why I'm assuming it was easier to go into Sweden and become some type of noble. All right, once again, let's read between the lines. You see, when you know your story, okay, then you know the mystery, because mystery is my story, okay? Baden married twice. First to Elizabeth Zwart in 1782, and then Magdalena Eleonora, or Eleon, whatever that is, right? I apologize for butchering the name. Norrell in 1799. He had no children. Baden has been described by his many court functions: assessor, page, footman, jester, dearest, servant, chamberlain, court secretary, ballot master, book collector. However, he preferred to call himself a farmer, as eventually owned 2 small farms, once in Swatch Jolundendet and the other in Shorunda. I'm assuming that's in Sweden, right? Baden's real last name was Kuchi. No, Kuchti, all right? And that's an American Aboriginal word, okay? Kuchti. But he was Christianized or Christianed as Baden, which signifies prankster, okay? Let me give y'all some other jewels, okay? Names such as LaQuisha, names such as Shanae from Martin, okay? Names such as Shaquana, all those names are American Aboriginal names. Y'all think that's ghetto. You see how they got our people so messed up in the bloody head? You see how they got us so messed up? Because everything that's of significance to us, okay, that celebrates our culture, that give credence to what we know and what we were and who we are, they always tell you it's ghetto. You see what I'm saying? But y'all don't know those names are Aboriginal names, did y'all? But now you know if you didn't know. Okay, now you know. All right, let us read some more. He's also been referred to as a Maroonian, which was the colloquial name for African diasporians in Europe at that time. Why don't you just say the man was an American Aborigines? No, every so-called black person in the world came from Africa, but we're the only ones who believe that. Nobody else, no other ethnic group believed that but us. At the age of 7, Koshchi was purchased in St. Croix and taken to Europe by a Danish sea captain who gave the boy to Queen Louisa Ulrike of Prussia, Queen of Sweden, 1751 to 1771, as a gift. Okay, how are you going to buy an American Aborigine, take him out there, say he from another continent, and give him away as a gift, like it's a puppy or something, right? I tell you, that's crazy, man. Aristocrat ladies of that time considered it fashionable to have so-called black pages in their palaces. Eva Engblom, a Swedish amateur scientist who examined evidence of Moors, North and West Africans in Europe, estimated that between 50 and 100 people of African descent were brought to Sweden during this time. And once again, yes, Moors are from Europe and Africa, okay? They are not originally from the Americas. All right, so let's stop with the games and the lies, okay? Anyway, Queen Louisa Ulrike reigned during Sweden's Age of Liberty, 1718 to 1772, a period of political and scientific enlightenment. She founded the Swedish Academy of Science, which studied provocative thinkers of this era. Carl Linnaeus, the father of modern taxonomy, and Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the major Western political and educational philosopher of that era, both captured the Queen's attention. Some say that, that Baden was her experiment in that she wished to prove Rousseau's theories of educational development, including then radical idea that children learned best by experimenting or experiencing consequences rather than by coercion. Baden was allowed to roam freely in the royal palaces and was mentored and trained and become as a highly educated as any European aristocrat of that period. He learned and spoke German, French, and Latin fluently. He was treated as a sibling of the Queen's 4 children, including Sophia Albertina, who later became Baden's patron. Consequently, Baden enjoyed intimate familiarity with Swedish royalty for the duration of his life. At the age of 21, Baden was christened in the chapel of Guys, I'm sorry for butchering these words, man. Let me just highlight where I'm reading so you'll know where I'm going to be messing up. So let me just do that real quick, okay? At the age of 21, Baden was christened in the chapel of Drut Ningulm Palace outside Stockholm and given all the names of his listed sponsors: Adolf, Ludwig, Gustav, Frederick, and Albert. He now accompanied the Queen on diplomatic missions and became a roving ambassador for the Swedish court. He also managed 3 royal palaces, collected books, and kept extensive journals. His diaries, written in French, are now archived in the library of Uppsala University. Baden's book collection, numbering 800 to 900 volumes, was sold upon his death. Some historians note Baden as the first recorded book collector of, I'm going to put it in proper context, American Aboriginal, okay, origin, okay? In 1782, upon Queen Ulrike's death, Baden served 3 successive Swedish monarchs, being with his childhood friend, King Gustav III, who was murdered in 1792, Gustav IV, 1792 to 1809, and Karl VIII, 1809 to 1818. Despite his respect and devotion to Swedish royalty, Baden was rarely mentioned in Swedish history texts. He died in 1822 in Stockholm at the age of 75. His remains are buried in the Katarina Cemetery in Stockholm. All right. So, just wanted to share some things with you guys. Hope you found some value in the lesson. All right. I've been on here for like about an hour and 42 minutes. All right, guys. So I want to thank you guys, man. Just please go to the site and to bookmark the site. And please, man, teach your children, man. Teach your children. Teach our people, man. Get them away from all these distractions. It's time that we start learning that information, learning the facts about who we are, learn how to break and disseminate all the lies, and look at the different times and look at the different dates and connect the dots. Family, it's a puzzle, because our story is not his story. However, our story can be found in his story, which is a mystery to everybody, except for those who could decipher that. Because you cannot just look at, you cannot just look at the story of the American Indians, okay, and say, no, it's just the natives. Well, that's what they show us on TV. That's what they show us in the cowboy and movies. That's what they tell us in school. No, you cannot just look at it from that perspective. It is not that clear cut, okay? It is not that simple. And even when you look at the genealogy or the timeline, okay, of the wars with the American Indians, okay, with, the colonizers who first happened to be so-called black, right? You have to also parallel that to what was happening in Russia, not Russia, but in Europe, okay? Africa at that time they had already ravaged Africa at that time. And it wasn't the pale man who did that to Africa. It was people who looked just like them. It was their people, okay? It was their people. I hear people talking about, Mansa Musa was the richest man in the world. Do you know how Mansa Musa got his wealth? Mansa Musa got that from raping his people. I don't give nobody like that any type of credit or respect. You feel me? I'm not going to turn them into a hero. Now, don't get me wrong. There was some wealth. But the wealth that he accumulated, you feel me? It came from his brother, okay? And what they did to their own people. You dig? So I'm not going to give you that respect. I'm not going to do that. Not going to do it. So we have to know what happened. When Africa was being raped by her own people. You feel me? By her own people. That was selling them out to so-called black nobility. You feel me? If you don't believe me, go see who the Pope is bowing to right now. The Pope is bowing to so-called black nobility. You feel me? Those were the people that was raping their own lands. And their mistake was, okay, they started having children with their white concubines, their so-called white concubines. And those mulatto children start changing the paradigm of what nobility looked like. And then they went and freed their so-called white fathers. And that's when wars was happening right in Europe. Okay? While so-called black noblemen was fighting the American Indians in the Americas, guess what? The mulatto was helping free their so-called white fathers. There was wars going on all over Germany, Scotland, Ireland, Britain. Just name it. Because you know what? I connected the dots. You see what I'm saying? I connected the dots. So now when you put the pieces together, oh, that was happening in France. Oh, that was happening in Portugal. Oh, that, okay, boom. The Moors ruled for such and such. They lost power in 1492. Boom. When did Christopher Columbus supposedly come here in 1492? All right, let's connect this dot. You see what I'm saying? Let's connect these dots. Oh, okay, boom. They were having children, boom, with this so-called white concubines. Oh, so Queen Charlotte, boom. Queen Ferdinand, boom. Queen Isabella, boom. King Ferdinand, boom. Oh, those are all mulattoes. Oh, yes. Now it's starting to make sense. You see what I'm saying? Now it's starting to make sense. And then boom, oh, Pocahontas was a so-called black woman. Oh, so now they were connecting not just the land, but the bloodlines. So now, boom, in the 20th century, another contract had to be created. Why? So now they have Meghan marrying the so-called white prince. Boom, another contract to come on, man. Family. You just got to be able to decipher this, man. Break it down. Break it down. Okay? And finally, like I told y'all before, the civil rights wasn't about us. It happened to become our fight because we were the last ones. Okay? After we had lost, okay, our title of literally 1924, the United States made all Indians American citizens. All right? All of them. So all the Aborigines gave up their titles of being Indians to now being United States citizens. So now they became civilians or quote unquote civilians. You feel me? So now they had to fight for the rights of all the civil rights that went on to fight for the rights of so-called, white slaves and servants. Because they themselves couldn't vote. I'm talking about Italians. I'm talking about the Irish. They were not considered white. They were not considered white. Okay? And I showed y'all exactly what a free white person was. I showed y'all that. Okay? But anyway, I'm about to get out of here, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this. Once again, go to the website, show your love, show your support. Okay? And please do your own due diligence. Do your own research. Even if I give you enough information, do your own. Don't believe anything that I say. All right? Take your time. Go through the information. And if anybody could prove me wrong, please do. Okay? If you also have stuff to add, by all means, do that as well. But I'm just giving y'all the information, all right? So, what I might do another live later. It depends. I'm gonna get some rest, relax a little bit, and I might do a live later talking about the Constitution, talking about we probably gonna go over UNDRIP, probably go over the Human Declaration rights, probably go over just stuff like that, a couple of because I know people on the whole, even if I'm sharing that information for people on the whole, but it's more so geared to our people because we are the ones, okay, that's put in that position where we were stripped of everything. Okay, so I think that it's imperative that the education, okay, for me, for what I do, is for us American Aborigines. Okay, but anybody else could, by all means, you know, learn the education, because it's through the education, hopefully, we are able to respect each other. You know, respect each other for who we are, respect each other's culture. You see what I'm saying? That's what it's all about. You feel me? So I'm gonna go into some laws. I'm gonna go into ways of how you protect your rights. Okay, so we'll do that. So let me just rest for a little bit, take a little break. I had a beautiful salad earlier. I'm talking about like a huge salad where literally 3 or 4 people could have like went in, but you know, I threw that down. I have a gallon of spring natural spring water, so I'm gonna take a break, drink some water, relax myself for a little bit. I don't have a television, so I don't watch TV. So I'm just gonna go give thanks to the ancestors for a minute, relax my head, do a little bit of meditating, and maybe then in an hour or two, then I will come back. I will put some information together, and we'll get into some laws. All right. And I know y'all might you know, you guys might mean, you know, you might have the best intentions, but just so y'all know, I don't subscribe to being less. Okay, family, no disrespect. Okay, I don't, you know, I don't subscribe to being less because I'm not less. All right, I am highly favored. Okay, so if you want to say anything, just say, you know, be blissful or just be highly favored. All right, that's what I would prefer. If you want me to accept those words of kindness, please don't let it be bless you or be less you. You know, that's a curse. Just so y'all know. Okay. So be highly favored, okay, or be blissful, okay. That's a high vibrational energy word, okay. All right, guys. So we'll talk a little later, and I will see you guys in an hour or two or so. All right. Talk to y'all soon.